Okay. I pressed it, and now it's working. I pressed it earlier, like 2 seconds ago, and it wasn't. I'm talking about the record button. It's a square, and you press it, and then it's a circle. No, it's a on the Apple products. It's a circle, and then it goes to a square. I just realized that. My whole life of recognizing shapes for what it's doing. I always thought record was a circle. This is me trying to make a circle. And then a square was stop. No, I didn't. No, I remember what I remember now. Record was always a circle. Is that what I said earlier? I thought that it would be a circle now, but I press the red circle and it turns in to a square, which is stop. So you did it. You did it once again, Apple. You made magic happen. It looked when you haven't recorded yet, it's a red circle, which is record. And then once you're recording, it turns into a red square, or on the computer, just a gray square. And then you got to touch the square to make it stop. So it's like, I forgot my baseball. I have an autographed baseball I usually have out here. I'm not going back. There's no going back. Welcome, everybody. This is episode, I think this is the Jordan episode, 23. What? If it's not, we might have to skip one to get to it. I believe it is 23. I'm not up to date on which episode it is. Once you're in the 20s, it's kind of like your 20s in real life. Like once you get past 21, is it 22 or is it 23? Is it 24? Is there a huge difference between 22, 23, 24, 25? I would have to say that from my experience, which everything is for the podcast, unless I'm doing research. Am I going to do research for this someday? How do kids do research out there? That's something I want, like for school. I guess in real life, you just Google it. But if you have to do a school research paper, is there like a Google that's real? Like a sourced Wikipedia? Like when I was a kid, you couldn't really use the internet unless it was connected to like an article, unless it was an article that was like a real article. I remember doing my bibliography, or what was it? It's not a bibliography. We called it a bibliography, but one English teacher was like, that's not a real. It was like your sources, where you list your sources at end of your paper. And wow, I'm a good English major, huh? What is it? Works cited page? Anyway, there was a specific way to list internet stuff, but it was like you had to be sure that it was that it really knew what it was talking about. And I just want to know if there's like an education sanctioned Google where it just has all the answers and all the points of views from people who know what they're talking about. Because I don't know. I don't know if they do. I don't know how you do that. Because you did to go on the internet when I was a kid, or you would go like to the library and you'd find a book, and then you'd read parts of the book, and then you'd write down the part that helped you with the paper, and then you would cite that, which you could probably still do. There's still libraries out there. When I was in college, my dad, whenever my parents came to visit for like parents' weekend or whatever, like the first time they visited that school year, he always did it really nicely, but my parents would have me take them around campus, and they wanted to see where I went to class and where I sat in class. And I always thought it was really cool because I thought like my parents like loved, they do love, I'm sure they love, but I thought they loved me so much that they wanted to like, all right, Monday at 8:30, whatever. I had one 8:30 class. It was Spanish class, which when you're in college, 8:30 is an early class time. I mean, it's early for now. It's after midnight now. This is I just got to sleep. I just got to sleep. This is I just got to sleep podcast, and then decided to do a podcast. No, this is I just got my kid to sleep podcast. Because you were, unless it just popped up in your world. I just got my kid to sleep. His name is Jackson, and he is asleep. And this is a real one. Last week we were on the road. I didn't get him to sleep. This week I really feel it, you know. You might notice it in the podcast. Like I really, really got him to sleep. Well, kids get themselves to sleep for sure. But I provided the scenario and the correct sleep routine, required routine. There is a routine. But I don't think I have a lot to do with it anymore. When he was a baby, I controlled all of it. We'd read 3 books. One of them was Goodnight Moon, because I knew at some point he wasn't going to want Goodnight Moon anymore, and I wanted Goodnight Moon because I don't remember liking Goodnight Moon. That's a lot of what being a parent was for me the first 5 years, first 3 or 4 years, was what do I not remember from my childhood that seems fun or appropriate now, and regardless of what this kid wants. So we'd read Goodnight Moon was one of the 3 books. And then we'd say goodnight to a lot of things in the apartment. And then we'd go in, and I put him down. And he was at a young age. He didn't like. We did sleep training, and we got to bail. We got out of there. And I remember the first time we did it, because it's after a little while. I think they almost have to be 1 or whatever when you can really do it, where they sleep through the night. I felt like this emptiness inside, like I'm not needed anymore, you know, to wake up and be with him. But that went away right away when they needed you again, because they need you all the time. I think sleep training is just basically being like, parents need this time, and the kids aren't going to remember this time, so go do it. Because once he hit 3 or 4, I started falling asleep next to him and then getting up and doing stuff. And that's where we're at right now after age 5, which I don't feel judged. Maybe there's judging going on. Maybe parents like, you just got to put him in and let him go to sleep. But I've fallen in love with it now. Now I want to lay there while he falls asleep. I want to watch. I don't always watch. Sometimes I watch his eyes start to flutter. When he was younger, and sometimes he would nap, and then it'd be hard to get him to go back to sleep because he naps so long. I don't believe in waking up kids from a nap. I've heard that recently. I have a friend who works with little kids in I don't know what they're called, but I think it's called like a day home or something in Canada, where it's like kind of like a preschool. And she was saying some parents don't want their kids to nap longer than an hour, and I'm just like, I would never. And I guess if you hire someone to take care of your kid, then maybe you want to be able to just put them to sleep when they get home. But I just feel like when a kid is sleeping, their body knows what they need, and they'll figure it out. They'll fall asleep. We were talking about something earlier. My dad, I'll get back to that college thing. I promise you, coming up later. You know how like the news, people watch the news? Or like some shows will be like, this is happening now. That's what this podcast is like. I go on a certain place, and then I'm like, oh, this sounds fun. And then I'm like, but I'm sure I'll get back. And sometimes I do. Yeah. But that's how it was. When he was a baby, you wake up with him, you feed him, because that's what they do. They eat all the time. And then there was a point where Jack's mom did a really good job of like researching how to like sleep train, and we did that. And I felt sad that I wasn't needed for like, it lasted about 3 hours, because I feel like that night he woke up in the middle of the night. Like I don't sleep all the way through the night all the time, just because you want them to. And then and then it slowly devolved over the course of a couple years to me going and laying down next to him. When he was a baby, and he didn't want to fall asleep, I found that because babies like to fall asleep on your shoulder or whatever. They'll fall asleep in your arms, and then they'll wake up when you put them down. So what I would try to do is very gently, for the record, I would try to have him fall asleep with like my head very gently against his chest, just like very gently, to just have the comfort of that. And then I could like sort of like remove my head from that situation without jostling him, and then he'd fall asleep. Sometimes he would claw at my eyes, so that wasn't super good. I don't know if that's good. I mean, it was very soft. No one got hurt, but that happened recently too, where we were at my parents' house a couple weeks ago, and my son, he woke up at like 6 a.m., which might seem normal to everybody listening. Like kids wake up at 6 a.m., but he's not he didn't go to bed early. Like, we were on Pacific time in the Midwest, which is 2 hours. So he went to bed pretty late, and I knew he didn't even get 8 hours of sleep. So I was pretty confident in myself that he wasn't really awake. And I knew if we did just wake up, he would want to go back to take a nap, but he wouldn't want to. You know how that is? Like, when you want something and everybody knows it's what you want, and but you're like, I don't need that, you know? Well, I thought that would happen. Also, I was really tired. So I was like, we went downstairs and I could see how tired he was. So I was like, we're going to go back to sleep, which is a big step for me as a parent, because I'm in a mode now where I kind of like test what they want versus what I want and really try to see what's best for the kid. Because I found a lot of my parenting early on was me being like, I don't want to feel like I messed up. I don't want other people to see me messing up. And I would feel like angry and upset if like he was going through a thing and I felt like I messed up. And then at some point in parenting, I was like, well, that's not a good gauge for what you should do, because no one's going to know what to do all the time. No one's going to be perfect. And also, who cares who messed up? It's all about what's best for the kid now. And usually it's never best for anybody if someone's upset because they messed up. Like, if you watch a sporting event, they talk, like football especially. There's a position in football. I gotta open my water. I should have opened my water before the show. Oh, I'm so angry that I messed up. See how that devolved the show a little bit because I didn't open my water? See, this is a good lesson for life. You gotta not open the water. Oh, maybe you want to open the water before. That's fine. I hope I just looked at the camera. Well, I look at the camera a lot because that's where the people are. Hi people. Someday, a lot of people might be watching through that thing. So all of these are practice for that. And if you're all watching right now, you're the most important people in my life. Other than my son, because he's who I talk about. But, I mean, he's the most important for my life. But the people that listen to the podcast, I would say are the most important people in my life. I mean, family and friends are fine. But, like, you all are investing your time in something that I'm doing, and that's very special, and I want everybody to know that. And it's easy to invest time in things when everybody knows about a thing and everybody is on it, and it's just easy to feel confident that this is what I want to do with my time. And this podcast doesn't really check any of those boxes. So the fact that people are listening and watching for at least some of it is very special, and you're the most important. Because kind of, I mean, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a long time, but it feels like when I started doing stand-up, and this was actually touched on in a podcast I was listening to recently. I just fell across this video with Joe Rogan and Nate Bargatze, and Joe was talking about, I don't really listen. I shouldn't say I don't listen to the podcast because you want me, but like I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but he was talking about how the industry used to be different and now it's a lot of podcasts. And I think that's, I don't know where it's going with that. But anyways, thanks for being here. So in my olden days as a parent, I would feel bad that I did something wrong, and that's not a good way. Oh, I was talking about sports. So like football, if a quarterback throws a touchdown pass, then they always say that the defender has to have a bad memory. That's what they say. Your memory has to be very short as like an NFL, especially like defensive back, because you're going to get burnt. Basically, they're saying you're going to lose. That's what the professional coaches and everybody are saying. You're going to lose, and you're only going to be good if you're good at forgetting that you just lost. And so that's like I don't know if it's measurable, but it's a skill that is valuable. And I feel like that really came across in the Olympics too. Like it amazes me so much that people mess up at the Olympics. Like when it comes to like diving or like gymnastics or something where they're getting graded, like judged on how excellent they are. They're doing things that are so hard that they're missing them. They're messing it up. At the most important, it's not like they didn't work hard at it. They're just pursuing something that is the limits of their abilities in what is around. And so that's what makes the difference. And being a parent isn't that, it's not that difficult. I may be doing it really well. Sometimes maybe that's what it is. But anyway, I would find myself getting frustrated because I felt bad that I was like, oh, he didn't fall asleep. Now I feel bad because I've kept, like, I did something to make sure he didn't fall asleep. Or if he's not eating, I've seen that recently too with parents where your kid isn't eating food. And maybe this is definitely a projection for sure. I saw it recently. I saw a parent feeding their child, and they're frustrated that the child wasn't eating, and they were like, you have to eat this before you get any dessert. And the kid was like, I don't want any dessert, and walked out of the room. And I was like, well, that kid learned that they can be really confident. Because I was like, well, what do you say? If you're going to bargain with me, no deal. Walk away. But like, and maybe some parents don't feel bad if their kid doesn't eat. They just want their kid to eat. And but I just feel like, when I put out food for my son, and if he eats it, that feels amazing. And if he doesn't eat it, I try to remember that it's not my life that he's ruining. That's what I try to remember, that like the decisions he's making, I've provided him the information and the guidance. And if he chooses within his realm of choosing at 5 years old to completely disregard it, well, then he has to live that way. I don't tell him like you're not going to grow. I don't tell him like you got to eat to get big and strong. I just know that if he's like a little tiny guy as an adult, I'll know that I put out broccoli and I put out steak and I put out things, and that wasn't the choice he made. And there's cool things about being shorter too. I'm sure. I'm not tall. I'm not short. Once you're tall enough to ride roller coasters, what else do you really need to be tall for? Unless you really want to play sports. Which Jack said he wanted to play sports today. He said he wanted me to sign him up for baseball, which I don't know what that means really. I don't know if he knows what that means. Like, does he really know what that means? He definitely doesn't. Jack definitely does not know what it means to say, Dad, I want to sign up for baseball. That's what he said. Because first of all, he doesn't know what, like, we're hitting fall. So you're talking about fall ball. Sure, you're 5. But fall ball is like, you're into baseball. Like, you're not playing in the summer and the spring when everybody plays. You're playing fall baseball. So it's like football's on TV. Kids are playing soccer. You're playing you want to play baseball now? Like, what are you? They don't know. I mean, we live in California where it's always pretty nice out. But that's one thing he doesn't know. Secondly, he doesn't, this is very clear. He doesn't know. We live in Los Angeles, which I just said. Just covering that over again. Just, this is a city we live in for now. Maybe not to say we're moving, but you never know. But he said, will you sign me up for the Dodgers? And that's when I was like, oh, well, that's an adult. You have to be an adult to play for the Dodgers. And he was like, oh, so like when you're a kid, you can play against the Dodgers? And I was like, no. When you're a kid, you can play on a team that they might call the Dodgers, but to get to the Dodgers at the very basic level, you have to be over, 18 or whatever. And he's like, well, I just want to play for the Dodgers. And I was like, well, here's the thing. When you have to be very, very good as an adult to pick which team you play for. And he was just like, yeah, I'm very, very good because they had a sports class at school. And I just don't know if he knows. Because he said I wasn't very good because I just had gym class at school, which I don't. He hasn't checked I have a batting average online that I don't think you can Google, but it's not bad, for a non-professional, professional comedian, non-professional baseball player. I have, made my way in the non-professional leagues in the area that are not the top leagues, and I don't think he knows that. And I didn't throw it in his face either. All he knows is that I left on a Sunday to go play baseball. And he was like, but it's not more fun than hanging out with me, right? He said that because on Saturday, I'm not usually home on weekends, so I don't really get to play anymore. But on Saturday, I was like, hey, I got a babysitter coming in the morning because I'm going to go play baseball. And he's like, but it's not more fun than hanging out with me, right? And as in my head, I was like, now I have to retire because he's going to miss it. But I don't know. I didn't get I got a hit that game, but I didn't really smoke one where I was like I can walk off on that. So I don't think I'm retiring. But maybe he's going to start playing. I just don't know if he knows that, like, I played and it was, like, a lot and it was fun. But baseball's not just like soccer where you run around and kick a ball, which is soccer, I'm sure, has its own little things about it that you need to learn and do and whatever. But yeah, I kind of just want to be like, listen, you play with me for, a couple months. And then if you want to play in a league, we can play in a league. But I was lucky enough to have a dad who was very like direct and forward about that stuff. So it was just like, we were going to go play with him regardless. And then playing in league was like the fun time to play baseball. Not that it wasn't fun playing with my dad, but games are always more fun than practices. That's just how it is. So anyway, Jack not sleeping, kids not eating, not sleeping. If you've provided the environment for them to do that, you don't have to feel bad. You don't have to worry. If your child wants to ruin their own life, you can't enable it, but you don't have to take it on. You got enough on your plate. And that's more food for you. I have found that I do make food that I want to eat. And then if he doesn't eat it, then I get more. So I'm not going to root against him eating, but I'm going to stop worrying. Not that I was worrying. Anyway, I was talking about something earlier that I said I would get back to. One thing I was talking about on a podcast earlier, which if you notice a lower energy in this, you might notice a lower energy in my voice at least. I did lose a little bit of my voice this past week, and I had a cold, I think. I was tested for COVID 2 times, and I failed the tests both times in the way that I don't have it. My body failed, which I got to say, I'm not saying I'm disappointed that I don't have COVID, because I know it's a real serious thing. That's, people shouldn't joke about. But it is, my experience with COVID was like the last time I got it. I've gotten it a couple times. The last time I got it, I was in a hotel, and I had to stay there longer. Oh, no, this is the worst, right? I had to stay in a hotel longer, and then I got better, but it was like the first day I was so tired, so worn down. Like, I definitely had it. And I just remember laying on the bed, and it was a hotel, and just watching Shark Tank. That's like the only thing that I could watch. There was something about Shark Tank where I felt like if I streamed a show or watched something with a story, it was just like too much effort to decide. But I was like, I can get behind Mark Cuban riffing with people who have way less money than him, who want him to invest his money. Like I just like the excitement of new ideas, I guess, getting money. Well, that's what I did, and it was so like I would just lay there because I couldn't do anything, and I was all by myself in this hotel room, and like super temperature, sick or whatever. It was all the things that it's described as. I mean, I breathed fine and I could taste and stuff, but I was just laying there, and then I look back on those days. Some days when I don't, like the days I don't have that, I haven't had that, and I look back on those days and I'm like, wow, that sounds relaxing. Like, sure, have a, I don't know, debilitating, but a pretty horrible illness. But I was just laying on a bed. I'm not someone that takes a lot of time to just watch TV, and I think that's when I realized that's what they say. Like, when you get sick, that's kind of like a sign of your body being like, you need to take a break. Otherwise, we're just going to make you take a break, and it's not going to be as fun because you're sick. So when I tested myself for COVID, I didn't like the symptoms I already had. So I was like, if I could just use these symptoms to sort of like move into a COVID situation, then I could have like 10 days. I think it's weird people have definitely their own beliefs on how to handle it all. But I'm a comedian, and the rules pretty much are like you got to wear a mask. And so I can't wear a mask as a comedian. So I just cancel everything for the right amount of time, which was, I think at the time, I think it still is, 10 days from your first symptom, which is why when I get the first symptom, I want to test right away. Because if I have it, I want all of my 10 days of vacation. That's what I want. I don't want more of the world while I'm sick. Who are these people, who are like, oh, you're going to make me stay inside for 10? Yeah, I guess they're people that don't have kids. But like, even if, I mean, I've never had it with him, which might be harder, especially if you're really sick. But I would never want him to have it, of course. Um, but I think that's not the dream, to get a positive COVID test in your apartment by yourself while your family is away. But you know, it's it's a dream. I think I always imagined that I would clean everything, get everything done. I don't know. But anyways, I don't have it. I don't think I'm gonna get it now because I'm on the up and up. I'm on the up. This is the up and up. Um, but I did feel it, and the good part about being sick is that it sort of removes some of the inhibitions that I have around people, and it allows me to focus more on just what I have to do. Like, I had a show Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I felt pretty miserable Friday and Saturday, but I really focused just on myself and doing the show, and I wasn't worried about all the other stuff that you can worry about in life, and that was really fun. So I think also if I can sort of take that from that and put that in my normal life. So that's something to think about. If you're sick and you're listening to this, find the things that were nice and just try to put them in when you're healthy. That's good, right? I think so. You don't have to be at your best to do your best. T-shirt. Trademark. I didn't trademark it yet. Anyway, I was talking about something earlier. That's the whole topic of this podcast is earlier conversations. I will bring up the energy for sure. I think today was kind of a bittersweet day for me. Because I got in last night, but it was after Jack had gone to sleep. So, oh no, I have to, I got to sleep in and all that stuff. And, because he was just going to go to school. His mom was taking him to school. And, but then there's some miscommunication, and I was supposed to be available earlier, but I was getting a lot of stuff done and didn't have my phone an answerable situation. I had to pick up a car. I got in an accident, not recently. It was 2 weeks ago. A guy, man, these are all, but here's the thing. So I was at a stoplight. I was on my way home, right? From a show, I think, somewhere. I was getting ready to fly out the next day. And, I was going home from a show, I think it was. And near my place, there's a place called, the Donut Prince. And if you know anything about being a dad, if you're with your child and they're asleep and there's no one else in the house, you can't just leave to go to the Donut Prince, You just can't. But on that night, I was already gone. There was a babysitter at the house or whatever it was. And I was like, I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go to the Donut Prince. Because if you go at the right time, they're in California. If you go in the right time at night, you'll get they have a new batch coming out. Because I don't know why. Maybe because maybe they get low orders for the morning or whatever, but they're super warm and they're the best donuts I've ever had. And they have a big sign in their window. It looks like it's been there forever. It says, "Don't get a divorce, get a donut." Whenever I do words, if you're not watching it, but I always go how I would see them when I'm reading them. But then recently on stage, I've been well, you got to go reverse it for other people. But I don't know if that makes sense for people watching. I got to pay attention to that. Anyways, don't get a divorce, get a donut, which I think is funny because you can get both for sure. I've never had either. Well, I've had donuts, but I've never had a divorce. But I was I'm going to go get a donut from there. And you know how I've never been in an accident that was definitely someone else's fault before. I've hit people because of snow. Well, actually, one time I got rear-ended. But that's what happened. I was at the stoplight, and it turned green, and I went to go, but not fast enough. This guy just kind of slammed into my back of my car, and we pulled over, and he was really nice. It was a younger guy, and I think it was his first accident too. And I know that because I asked him for his insurance, and he gave me his medical insurance card and said it was a PPO. And I was like, well, I don't know, that's not hopeful unless they cover your car too. But it all worked out. They had insurance, and I just got my car fixed. But after I got hit, I was like, I got hit because I drove past my house. I went to go get a donut, which I don't think that makes me at fault in the accident. If anybody's from the insurance companies are listening, I don't think someone can make me at fault because instead of going home, I wanted to get a donut. That's the only fault that I have. I used to never eat donuts at night, and when I was a kid, it was a morning thing. But now, no one buys donuts in the morning, so it's gonna go at night. And so my car was drivable, and it was, everything was, it was kind of messed up in the back, but it was fine. And I was like, do I go home now first? Like on one level, it's like I got hit by a car. What else might happen? Let's just go home. But then on the other hand, I was like, well, I'm already out. Am I gonna not get this donut? So I did. I think I got 2. That was really good. Anyway, I picked up my car today, and that made me a little delayed for everything. But everything was good. I started the podcast talking about something. I got my shirt, my Lucky Charms shirt. So the big thing that happened this week, I usually get into things that are important almost when it's, at least almost, we're really into the podcast. But I filmed, I taped, I recorded, I did a show there were cameras there, and it was for Nateland. Nateland is Nate Bargatze's. We talked about him earlier, right? What was I talking about him earlier for? I remember saying his name because I always said Nate Bargatze, and then I saw his interview on Fallon where he talked about it, and he's like, no, it's Bargatze, but I didn't want to tell you. And I relate to that because my last name is Palasak, and sometimes people say Palaskak or Palashak or Palaskuk or Paliskuk or or blah. No. And you always feel comfortable correcting them, even when they're really wrong. So I was like, I want to say it right. But Nate Bargatze is a comedian who many people probably know, who probably listen to this for sure. If you know about me, I'm sure you heard about Nate. And there were 5 comedians on the show. One, Lace Larrabee, Mia Jackson, Wellington Ojoku. I think I said his name right. I don't know them. And me. So it was 4, and then Aaron Weber hosted, and then there was a warm-up comedian and someone else, and then Nate did some time at the end. And we filmed it. Well, it's not film. What is it? Videoed it. We videoed it. We recorded it. And it looks really good. That was last Tuesday in Nashville. And it's already on. They put mine on today, Monday. So it's a big day. I did a lot of material. So I have a special that's done in the can or whatever. Not in the can, but can is an old term, I think, for when the film's done. But so I did all stuff that was off maybe not really videoed for any special, like real high quality specials. So if you've seen all my reels and clips, you might not be like, oh, this is brand new stuff. But I liked the way it looked, and it was really fun. And that's what I did last week. And it was really cool because I know Nate from we did Just for Laughs in Montreal, New Faces, like a long time ago, before 2010. I think it was 8 maybe, or 9. We were young people, and we were New Faces. And I remember, I'd known of them, but it was the last night we were on the same show because it mixed up the groups, I think. And so we hung out the last night, and that was very fun. And then we did something for a company called Rooftop Comedy. It was a contest in Alabama that we did together and hung out. And I know my first memory of Nate was in Chicago, and he wouldn't know me, but my first open mic in the city of Chicago. I used to go to the suburban open mics in the summers when I was in college at Riddles and Barrel of Laughs Comedy Club in Oaklawn, and Riddles. Oaklawn was Barrel Laughs, and Riddles was in Orland Park. And I do those open mics on Wednesday and Thursday. But when I finished college and moved home, I wanted to do it more because I listened to an interview with Jerry Seinfeld where he said he just went up every day, for 18 months at a time or whatever. It's like all the time. And so I went into the city my first night, and I went to one open mic, and this guy named Ronald was really nice, and he gave me a physical Chicago Reader, which is kind of like a free newspaper, and it listed all the open mics, and he circled the ones that you could go to or whatever. And I think it was the first night. I'm pretty sure. Maybe that was the second night that he gave me the thing, because that was at Orange Crush, which was a Tuesday. But the Monday, my very first Monday there, I went to the main open mic, and then I found out about another open mic at a place called Burton's Place, the top floor, the third floor of Burton's Place. That's where it was at the time. It moved around a little bit. These two guys had this open mic, and sometimes you go to an open mic, and it's like some audience and some comedians. I feel like these guys' open mic were put in places where it was like, these are just going to be comedians. It felt like it was definitely going to be practice, but it wasn't the environment that was perfect for it. Like if you're in a play and you're rehearsing and you have a director, it feels like you're doing something. But when you were doing those open mics where there's like just comedians in the audience, it kind of felt like the only thing you were doing is showing to yourself that you wanted to do this. It didn't feel necessarily like you were accomplishing being a comedian, unless like some guys would do brand new stuff and you'd find out if a joke worked. But I think so early on, to find a new joke is like to have the confidence and the courage to like write it and have it be good. It just took a long time. So it felt like that was just an open mic. Sometimes you go to an open mic and you're in an audience and it's like sometimes you're going to go to an open mic and it's just like, well, I think I'm just here to show myself that I really want to do stand up. And that was one of those. I went up to the top floor. It was the third floor of Burton's Place. And it's like a 3 a.m. bar on the weekends, but on a Monday night, it was just, the comics there. And I remember walking up, and I was there late because I went to one first, which is always kind of fun when you're starting out to do one show at an open mic and then go to another one, because it really feels like you're in Chicago's a big city, but like in a place where you can just do, like in New York, and you just do spots all night or whatever. And it felt like that. So I got there and I signed up, and I remember Hannibal was on stage, a comedian, and he had a joke about it wasn't really a joke, but he was just saying there's a big stack of glasses on the bar that you drink out of, not eyeglasses. I know people were confused by that. And he was doing his set, and he was, he's very funny, and he's always, done well. But he started talking about how I remember him saying, like, what if I just knocked all those glasses off the bar? And it was like really funny. Like, it made people laugh a lot because we knew he was just, there's something about doing an open mic that it's just comedians that if people know, or if it's like people, there's different environments. There's some environments where you do an open mic or a show, and if people know you're making it up or it's fresh or new, they're giving it a bigger response because they value that more. Like, I feel like Chicago Zanies and Old Town is like that too. Like, if I go there with new stuff, they're going to like that more than if I just try to open up with like prepared stuff I've done for a long time. And I felt like a lot of open mics with just comedians are like that. Like, there's a comedian named Nick Vatterott who would go on stage and just talk. And it was so funny. You might be like, Michael, that's what you do in this podcast. Yeah, but this was really, really good. Like, Nick would just destroy his 3 minutes, and it would just be him talking, which is really cool to see people do that. And that just wasn't something that I could translate for me to doing in like shows where people wanted stuff that was prepared in a way. Like, there's the comfort of like, oh, there's like a couple hundred people there and you have to make them laugh. And so they're just not giving you stuff because it looks new or whatever. But Nick was really good at that. And then Hannibal was on stage making fun of the glasses falling. And I really felt, I don't know if you've seen the movie Rocky, but there's a point in Rocky where, well, the first opening scene, I think, Rocky fights this guy, and he's in this like kind of crappy like gym or whatever. And after the fight, the guy comes and he's like, "Hey, you won, so you get this much money, but he takes out rental fee for the locker and rental fee for something else, and it's like very little money. And then he goes to the guy that lost. He's like, you get even less because of this. And at the time, I was like, oh, this is like the opening scene to Rocky. This is where it all starts, you know? This is that moment. This like kind of like dark, dingy place where you're doing it because you're doing it, whether you love it or whether you have to or whatever. You're here, and I thought it was because you love it, you know. And then I started doing stand-up for a while. I was like, no, I'm not even at that place yet because you're not even getting paid. Like whether you win or you're not even getting anything. So I was even before that, you know. But so Hannibal does that, and I think actually Nate was up before him because I think Nate was on stage right when I walked upstairs. It was like the third floor, and I walked up, and so the show's already going on because I did this other open mic first. And Nate was on stage, and he had a joke about the buses having an accordion because he's from like a small town not small town, from Tennessee, but in Chicago they have these buses that are super long, and there's an accordion like that connects them. And I don't remember the punchline, but I just remember it being very funny. And he had a very distinct way of talking that was very funny to everybody, and obviously is now. And Nate did that joke or whatever, and it was fun. He did well for it being such like a bad room to do well in. And then he moved to New York right after that. Like I never saw him until I met him later. And it was interesting too. I remember Nate. I guess this is more inspirational than anything else, but because he is, people don't know who he is. He's like huge, like he's selling out arenas. So I guess the point of this is just like everybody starts somewhere. Even if you're very, 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 very good, you have to, figure. I mean, he doesn't need inspiration from me, but like I think it's cool to hear people's stories. And I remember him telling me that they were comedians when we did whatever shows together that we knew between each other, and he had some goals that like these other people were getting that he wasn't. And I think it's really inspiring, not to him, but like to other people, I think, to see that like someone who has hosted SNL and like been on Tonight Show a lot and sold multiple pilots, they were at a place too where they looked at other people and they're like, I want what they have. And I think that just goes to show that if you're in a place and wherever you are in your career, when does this get funny, Michael? Right? Yeah, this isn't necessarily fun, but maybe it's good to be inspiring sometimes. Maybe it's the sickness, it's pulled out all the energy that comes behind the comedy. But this is the lesson, this is the joy or whatever, that if you're at a point wherever you are, because I think maybe we don't, maybe there's some people in life who don't think about it, but if you're in a moment where you're really good at something, you're great, you might be like one of the best ever if everybody can find out who you are, that if you're one of those people and that about yourself, and you look at other people and you're not like they're bad, they never said that, and I don't think anybody's saying that other people who are successful are bad, but that like you feel like there's things that you wanted to accomplish that they accomplished first, or maybe even instead in the moment, that the greatest, most successful people in the world were also where you are. So you can feel the anxiety or anger or fear of being like, I'm not getting this thing, but somebody else is. You can feel that way. It's very normal to feel that way. But you don't have to feel small because of that. You never have to be dwarfed. Am I allowed to say that? Made to feel small because of someone else's great accomplishments. That's not what their accomplishments are for. Their accomplishments, I mean, on a very normal level, are just like they're for them, they're for their fans, they're for their people, they're just existing in the world. And if anything, you can be inspired by it or motivated. I don't know. But it doesn't mean that you're not anything. Like Nike, right, is huge. So if you're not Nike or one of the other three and you're making shoes, you might be like, well, I'm doing a really good job. Sure. That doesn't mean that you're not. And maybe someday you will be at that. That's the other cool thing about that story, is that someone who did make it. Like if you're a comedian and you're performing in an arena where 10,000 people come to see your show or more, and you're in the middle, like a place where people go to watch professional athletes play, if you're in the middle of that and they come just to hear you talk, and some of them are so far away that they can't see the expression on your face, so they have to look on a huge jumbotron to see what it looks like for you to do the show, and they just want to be in the room to laugh a lot. They want you to hear the laugh. They want to laugh live at the show, even though they're barely visible to you. That's the top of the mountain as a comedian. And so you can be at that level, and that doesn't mean you never had moments before where you're like, how come I'm not? How come I'm not rated where other people are at my? And it's not just like, well, they've been doing it longer, but there can be people exactly at your position and all the places that get the things that you wanted, and that doesn't mean that you're not good. That's what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't mean you should give up. I mean, you can give up. There's a lot. You could just lay on the couch and watch Shark Tank, I think, for a little bit. You don't have to give up. You just not try right now. Anyway, that's the motivational episode, I think. I don't know if it's motivation. So anyways, the thing comes around where Nate has his show, and they email me when I get to do it, and it's such a special thing for me to be on a show that is on his channel, where he's embraced the comedy community. As a stand-up comedian, he's become a producer of a kind of comedy that is available to people who it isn't offensive. I think it's clean or whatever. And he has embraced that and provided a place for people to do that. And it was an honor to be a part of that system and maybe see what comes from that, because it's definitely new. This is the second season, and there's nothing really like it. Like Netflix has new comedians sometimes, and I'm not necessarily a new comedian, but I'm new to some. And when I was starting out, Live at Gotham was like the new comedian show where on Comedy Central. And before that, it was Premium Blend, and they would just come around. And for me, doing Live at Gotham, I did festivals that were contests, and you get to do the contest, and then they know who you are, and then they can have you do your TV set. And it's so special to do this set on cable television at a comedy club, and that kind of went away. But now Nateland exists, and I'm sure other ones will exist. Don't Tell, I guess, is another one, and it's a really cool thing. And so it's fun to be a part of, and it was an honor to like know the person who was like, it feels cool in your career to be like, the people talk about, I've had this happen for sure, at least once in person, maybe more, but I've had people come up to me who like Nate a lot, and they have a little grin on their face, and they're like, do you like Nate Bargatze? And like, I'm in Vegas recently. I was like, yeah, I know Nate Bargatze. I know him. They're like, do you like him? I was like, yeah, I like him. And because it feels like they're about to say, because I'm clean and I don't like scream a lot. They're like, oh, you just like this guy and you're being like this guy. I'm like, no, I've known him we're very similar ages. I don't know. The thing about doing a podcast is when you're just talking, sometimes things come out that if you were writing it down, you'd be like, I'm gonna cut that out. I don't think I said anything that I would cut out, but I think it's a little not up my alley to use comedian experiences as inspiration for the day to day. I don't know if people are tuning in being like, man, I hope Michael has an inspiring story today. I kind of like talking about stand-up because I know a lot about it, and it's been my experience. But I do think that the most inspiring thing you can do is make people laugh, and then and feel good, and then the things that they want to have happen, I feel like they're just a little lighter about. And so that's me being more inspirational in a time where I decided I didn't want to be. But that's what today's is. That's the podcast today. It's not over yet. It's soon to be over. It's a big transition. It's a big transition time. There was an earthquake today. Cut me some slack, right? There was a 4.7 earthquake at first. Then it was like, you're really a 4.4. It was like that gymnast thing. Did you hear about the gymnast? They got a certain number, and then someone challenged it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's right." The earthquake was ended up being a 4.4. I was laying in bed, and if you looked up what time that the earthquake happened, you might be like, "You gotta wake up earlier." I travel a lot, so I sleep when I can. And the earthquake started happening. I was already awake, and when the earthquake happens, I remember when the first one happened. Not the first one of all time, but that I was here for in California. I remember my roommate telling me that you're supposed to go on the ground, lay next to your bed. That way, if something falls on you, it'll fall on the bed, and they'll be protected. Like if the bed was right here, you just roll off the bed, get next to it, and then whatever falls will just be protected. I did that the first time instinctively. Well, not instinctively. I knew about it, but I knew about it, and then I used my instincts in that moment of knowing about it. So I don't know if that's instinctive or not. And I just rolled right next to the thing. And that's the only time I ever did that. Nothing fell on me. Now when the earthquake happens, today I just laid on the bed and I held onto the bed as if I was in the movie Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, which is a very old movie to reference. And my bed was going to take off into the world. It was like an Aladdin, and I was on a magic carpet ride. And I thought I was going to fly off. And because I realized that there's no real holding on to the bed isn't a huge thing. Like if the whole building collapses, am I going to be glad I held on to the bed? If I'm in my neighbor's apartment because I felt the floor cracked and I fell and I'm just there and, but I held onto the bed, am I just going to let go of the bed and then roll off and brush myself off and just be like, phew, glad I held on to that mattress as I fell. I should look up what the real problems can be when I don't know if I need to look it up, but I don't really know what the danger. I guess if everything just breaks around you. But yeah, we had a big earthquake today. So this is, we're all just grateful to be here. My car's okay. My son is asleep. I just got him to sleep. And here's the thing. Here's the good part about getting your kid to sleep late. They don't wake up in the middle of the night. That is for sure. Sometimes, if you get your kid to sleep early, you can... my camera's being weird. Okay, we're good. They can wake up in the middle of the night because they're like, I'm not used to going to bed this early. But not when they go to bed late. That is for sure. Well, I got my Lucky Charm shirt on. I wore it underneath my shirt on the same. Watch the Nateland set. Forget everything I said about being serious. Have fun. But I do thank you for being here. I don't remember what I talked about earlier, but it was definitely, I think it was good about being a parent. And I'll get better. I'll heal. The podcast is great, right? This is right. Right. But I'll heal for sure. And without getting COVID. All right. Episode 23. The GOAT episode. Jordan. I don't know. LeBron is also 23 and I was born in Cleveland, so I don't need to start that. Maybe I will. All right. The end.